Welcome, everybody. My name's Tina Hurley. I'm a mom of a beautiful 17-month-old son, exercise physiologist, physician assistant, and the founder and executive director of Less Leg More Heart, which is why you're all here. Less Leg More Heart's a charity that helps amputees in a supplemental way to the medical system. We help with things like provision of holistic approaches to care and funding for home services during transition, like home modifications and house cleaning and meal services and handyman services, so that we can really make sure people are cared for and that the secondary outcomes of amputation.
Sorry, could you say that?
Sorry, like infections and falls and readmissions and narcotics and suicide, and all these things that happen because of lack of support aren't the case. We built a safety net in, and it's based on my own personal experience as both a physician assistant and now also an amputee. My 6-year ampuversary is coming up on the 28th of July, and I've learned a lot during that time. And I had to struggle a lot in the beginning because I didn't have a lot of resources, even though they were all there, many of them, trying to find these pieces of bread floating in the ocean for resources and knowledgeable people to share wisdom to help me through the stages of grieving and to stop some of the secondary losses I had in my personal life due to a lack of education would have been so helpful. And so that's kind of the basis of why this started and what we're doing. There's a number of folks here today that are either volunteers of the organization, beneficiaries of the organization, and a couple that are just new that I'm excited to learn about and to help in any way I can. If you guys know anybody that could use Less Leg More Heart services, you just send them to our website and they go into the contact section. There's a disability assistance form. They fill that out and then we just get the ball rolling with all the love. So that's the upfront stuff and some of the housekeeping. I want to ask everybody a question just to kind of get everybody speaking about one word that would describe the amputation journey for you or being an amputee. If you could describe it, where you're at in this moment, not before or not after, but right now, what's the one word? And I'll start and then I'll kind of just call names off. So my one word is blessed, actually. And it took a really long time to get there, but it happened and I'm really grateful for that. So mine is blessed. I see Jill might have something to piggyback, so I'm going to go with Jill next. Unmute yourself, Jill, and tell us your one word.
I was going to say blessed, but you took that. Thankful.
Like that. How about Wafa?
Comfort.
Wow, I love that. Amanda?
Thriving.
What is it?
Thriving.
Love that. Okay. Not always that way, right? Man, but when it happens, it's nice, but it's a long journey to get there. Anthony, what do you got for a word, bud?
Just adapting.
Yep. Jasmine?
I'm a fairly new amputee, and one word to describe like my journey right now is kind of limited. I'm very limited to like the things that I can do now. So
I understand that. And then Liz?
I say 2 words.
You can because you're right at the transition point of a new exciting journey. So yeah, you can have 2 words.
All right. How about regret and unpredictable?
Good ones. And then Don? I think
I'm new too, so I have 2 different ones. It's terrified and determined.
I like that. Okay, thank you all. If you could just remute, that would be wonderful. So thank you all for sharing with me those words. I can relate to every one of them. I went from unlovable and disfigured and just, I mean, the worst words you could think of to now blessed and thriving and thankful. And because I've accepted kind of where I'm at and this life, and I've filled it with purpose, but it slips every now and then, right? We don't just get places and stay there. I cycle back with different triggers into different stages that, make me angry. Spring's happening and all I see are people jumping up out of their, houses and running and playing with their babies unbridled and, doing all these things that are very, very challenging for me. And that if I did, I would pay for. But you have to just keep sort of reminding yourself of the benefits and the blessings that have happened to us that they don't have. And that, that things do get better, but like Anthony said, you have to adapt. So love that all. That was beautiful. So the goal of being here in Heart to Heart is that we're creating a supportive and intimate, engaging community for amputees. As we grow this, we'll be able to grow it so it can be more of a connection for different types of people that have different either demographics or different amputation levels, or that want to connect further. We want to really just take vetted sources and speakers with expansive knowledge and connect them to you with, health wellness experts and people that are experts in the amputee and prosthetic community, really anything that could be relevant to you as an individual. And some of that's not just amputation and prosthetics. A lot of that is emotional and mindset and learning to live with the trauma that you've been through and all of the things that come along with that. And even if certain things aren't necessarily relevant to you in your journey at this moment, you may have something that you've dealt with previously that you can share about it to help other people, like these others that are newer to the journey, or be able to share that information and pay that forward to other people. So thank you all for attending. If you could all just, again, as a reminder, put into the chat where you're from, the level and the cause of your amputation, and how long you've been an amputee. And if nobody could ridicule me today about my Kermit the Frog voice as I recover from this cold, that would be wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and just let you guys know that we're going to be giving away a raffle prize today. We're going to be giving away a 3-month supply of CBD gummies for 3 people. And I'll tell you at the end of the meeting how you can be eligible to win that if you stay till the end. So without further ado, I don't want to take up any more time. I have Kelly Calabrese here, who is just an incredible wealth of knowledge. She's an author and a speaker. She's a longtime coach and consultant for a variety of fields: fitness, wellness, longevity, and life management. She's talked on all different platforms: CBS, Fox, NBC, Forbes, New York Times, Men's Health, Huffington Post, and countless other places. But now she gets to add Less Leg, More Heart to the list there. And she's captivated the lives of tens of thousands of people internationally and inspires them and me to be their best selves. She is a dear friend of mine, an inspirational mompreneur, and I'm really excited to learn from her presentation about understanding grief and managing wellness throughout the stages. So without further ado, Kelly, the floor is yours.
Tina, thank you so much for having me. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here, and I'm so happy to do this. And Tina is one of my favorite people on the planet. I've said that from the moment I've met her. She has such a bright life, and I am privileged to do life with her. We have been with each other through some dark moments and also some beautiful moments, and I'm excited for what's to come. So today, the topic that I chose was grief. And the reason that I chose that was because none of us are getting out of this life without struggle. I mean, even really severe struggle. No one has the life that we thought we would, not a single one of us. And there's even suffering. It goes beyond struggle. But we have a choice with what we do with what we're given. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about. So 4 years ago, a turning point moment for me was when my husband of 25 years came home and he said, my commitment to our marriage is 0. And he left. Blindsided me, floored me. My entire identity was lined up with being a wife. So this was just my thing. So I'll use that as an example, and you can apply it to where you are in this season of your life. I went on a 3-year, what I lovingly call a sabbatical or a healing journey, because I needed to figure out, how do you make this pain stop? How do I not repeat this again? How do I become better and stronger for it? So on that journey, I discovered a lot of things. I discovered who my authentic self was. I forgave my ex-husband and myself. I rediscovered a new purpose, at least for this season, maybe not forever. and got to a place of health and healing and wholeness and happiness again. But there were triggers along the way, and there were many setbacks along the way. And one of the triggers was when I got the news that my former husband, within a very short amount of time, was remarried. And so I remember calling a friend and just being so in shock and triggered again. And I met her for lunch, and she said to me, Kelly, you're depressed, and that's good. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? How can depression be good? Doesn't sound like there's anything good about depression. And I had been studying at that point personal development for over 30 years. So I had studied with some of the world's greatest gurus and read the books of wisdom. And she showed me something called the grief cycle. And I'll share some of that with you today. But depression was actually on the upswing. And that, for some crazy reason, just gave me hope. I'm like, okay, I can find hope in this depression somehow. So I went back and I looked at it. And the very beginning of when grief happens is this loss. There's some hurt, there's some affliction, there's some loss. And the first feeling is shock. And now none of this happens exactly in this order. In fact, it's really messy. It's kind of like, ooh, it's not like this perfect curve or this perfect line. We all just get better step by step. It is like, wah. But it starts with something comes along and there's a hurt, there's a shock, there's a loss. The next feeling is something like numbness, where you just gutturally feel like you can't even feel. And you can't disconnect the body, mind, and the spirit. So this isn't just something going on emotionally, but it's happening physically. It's happening. You can feel it in your spirit, your soul, your mind, your will, everything is just connected to this loss. And then the next emotion that comes along is denial, where you're like, wait a minute, this is not happening. This is not my life. I did not sign up for this. I did not, maybe you didn't do anything wrong. I mean, horrible things happen, accidents happen, terrible things happen behind closed doors. I mean, there is struggle and suffering in the world, and it's just a natural response to be in denial of not accepting this. And then another phase in this is emotional outbursts. And maybe this isn't even your character. It is not mine. I am not someone who's very dramatic and extroverted and having emotional outbursts. But what's happening inside eventually when the pressure hits is going to come out. And you might not even recognize this as yourself anymore. And then after that, there could be anger. And maybe you were never an angry person before. I was not an angry person. And thankfully, I journaled my process. And I went back and I looked like, was I angry? Because I don't remember it. And I did find a little section there where I was angry. And you need to get angry. Anger is actually healthy. In fact, it's even biblical. In the Bible, there's something called enmity, which is a holy, violent hate for something. We are supposed to hate things that are wrong. We are supposed to hate things that are unfair, unjust. So it's necessary to have that emotion. And if you're skipping any of these things, they're going to come back and rear their head again until you go through them, until you feel all the feels. And by the way, if anyone wants to ask questions, or you can type them in there, we can go back and visit any of these. The next one in the grief cycle is fear. This is huge. This can be paralyzing. This is where you're seeing anxiety, panic. This is when now you're starting to process the future and you're thinking about, oh my goodness, how is this going to happen? What's happening in this situation? And all these things start coming into play as you begin to imagine what your future will be like with this loss, with this disappointment, with this suffering. And it just comes in and it overwhelms you. At some point, you start searching where, okay, how can I make sense of this? Can I get help? Are there resources? Is there knowledge I can learn? What's available to me? And you start to go, let me start to make sense of this by finding some answers. And then there could be some disorganization that comes in, where now you might be getting too much information, or new things are coming in, and you're trying to, there's a little bit of chaos that's happening as this is coming at you. Once you get to this point, then panic can literally set in, where it just gets so overwhelming. It's more than you could handle. It's more than you can take. And that's where community, family, resources, all these things are so important, and having tools and techniques like breath work, things that can help you to settle down a little bit. The next one is guilt. And this is also an interesting phase and emotion that comes in, because you might start to think about, what was my responsibility in this? How is this affecting my family? Are people going to have to take care of me? Will I be able to contribute, earn? And that's just an emotion that can set in. The next one is loneliness. And that's where you just want to isolate. Just kind of raise your hand if this sounds familiar to anyone, where you just want to shut yourself out and you don't want to just take anything in. You just want to be alone. And it's not necessarily that good alone where you're doing a deep dive and, doing this deep spiritual journey. It's where you're shutting people out, and you may be trying to process things. And again, all of these are necessary. And it's not that all of these are bad. There's always two sides to a ditch, where you can do a very unhealthy isolation, or you can do a productive isolation. You can do a healthy anger, you can do an unhealthy anger. We want it to be a healthy part of the process. After the loneliness and the isolation, that's where the depression comes in. And again, it sounded silly, but this is where I really discovered this, that depression starts to be on the upswing. You realize that you're pressing things down, but you're starting to move towards, how can I take this trouble and begin to do something with it? So I'm pushing things down, but the way that life works is there's this balance, there's a swing. So from the low, a high can eventually come, or not though, right? We do have a choice. So after the depression is this re-entry, where you start to look at, okay, what is my trouble? What is my hurt? What is my hard thing? What is my suffering? And how can I begin to re-enter life in a way that is, productive, meaningful, to the point where you can get to new things again. And you can start looking at, okay, can I have new relationships, new friends, new connection, new community, new opportunity? And this is where you start to get hope, because now you start finding new strength in yourself that you didn't even know that you had before. Like a lot of the words that were used about this season of your life right now, things like blessed and gratitude and thriving, that's when you're getting to, wow, if this didn't happen to me, I would not be this strong, courageous, bold, grateful, blessed person. And then you'll start building new patterns, like, okay, this is my new life. What does this look like? How can I make this work? And that's when you start getting more hopeful. You start putting more positive energy behind it, and you'll get affirmations. You'll start to get feedback about, okay, this is working. I am able to get up and do and contribute and be and have. And then the highest level is when you get to a place where Tina and Summer, you were at, where now you're helping others. That is getting all the way through the grief cycle and healthy readjusting to where you have now adjusted to the loss, and you're bringing other people up along with you. So Tina, I just feel like I'm going to stop there for a moment and see if there's any, that was a lot, if there's any questions or comments, and then I'll continue from there. If anyone has anything they want to ask or.
I don't know if you saw Dawn's comment, but I think she's definitely is something that I think you should touch on more so, about the future being terrifying. And she goes through phases in all different orders. Maybe that's something you can help Dawn with.
Okay. I don't know that I saw the question, but yeah. So Dawn, fear comes in. There's always two voices in our head. And there's the one that's you're not good enough. You'll never be enough. You're not, it's just that lying voice that puts you in fear. And it's when your mind is either going back and replaying all the old things, replaying the story, replaying what happened, and it keeps you in this place of fear. You're just on this like hyper alert, intense, anxious place. And fear is also when you start thinking about the future, where there's unknown. I mean, none of us know about the future. We only have today. That is all any of us are guaranteed. And this day will never happen again. So what helps is to really get present and to breathe and to focus on the things that you're able to handle for today, because today has enough trouble itself without thinking about the future or the past. There's not a thing we can do about anything that has happened in the past. It doesn't even really make sense to talk about it. In fact, I decided that I would only talk about it if I'm ahead of someone else who's going through it and it helps them. But otherwise, it doesn't help for me to sit and think about all the difficulty and the injustice and the pain. And the same thing with the future. It's good to have some vision that you're hopeful about and you can get excited for, because without vision, the people perish. But if it's too much, breathe. That just shows you I'm alive. That is something I can control and do something about. I have the ability to lower my nervous system and get calm in this place. And then you have dominion over the fear. So you can say to that voice, stop it. You're not true. I'm not listening to you. What you're saying is not right. Because then you have that other voice in your head that does say you are enough and that you have what you need. And so I would sometimes just need to hold an imaginary mirror up and look at myself and affirm myself that I am worthy, I am enough, I am whole, I am healed. And you can write these out, whatever is powerful for you to say and meaningful for you. But it takes affirmations. And so I would have cards, in my car, in my office, on my mirror, where I would get up in a routine and say these things, because sometimes we need to be our own cheerleader. And that's part of the resilience of getting knocked down 10 times and getting up 11. Sometimes it's literal, where we have to have the courage to get back up. Oh, Dawn, you have a question. And you're mute.
Mine doesn't come from like looking at myself and saying like I'm not good enough. My fear is not that. Like at first yes, I think I'm just very, very strong, so I can get over things very fast because a lot's happened in my life. I've had a heart attack at 38. Like I've had so many chances at life that I've beat it and still here. But my fear is, so like I have above the knee, my circulation in my good leg, well, it's not a good leg, actually. In my present, the only full leg I have, circulation is very poor. So there is a chance that I'm losing it. I mean, I was scared of going into the first surgery to save my leg. So I was supposed to go in just to have a stent put in. But when they went in, my body instantly clotted off everything from my knee down, and there was no saving it. So it was either take it or I was gonna, get septic and die. So my fear is, they just told me that I have no circulation to my toes on the other side. So how do you get over the fear of knowing that I could lose the other leg?
Yeah, that is a very, very good question.
That's what goes through my mind. It's not somebody who's going to look at me and say, hey, she don't have a leg. And, the things that people do. Because when I went on the plane for the first time, nobody looked at my face. They looked at my leg first. And I felt like saying, hey, I'm a person. I have a face. I have a story of why I don't have a leg. But their first reaction was a leg. Now I don't care. And it's only been like 5.5 months since losing it. I go out to the store. You can look at it. You can say what you want. I don't care. It doesn't bother me anymore because I know who I am. It doesn't define me. However, the fear of losing the other leg doesn't go away.
Right.
I will
Yes.
say that
So I
Dawn,
don't know how to
Dawn,
deal with that.
I can share a little, and Kelly, I don't interrupt too much, but
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I have a rare vascular condition, Dawn, that is in both of my legs. And they took my left leg below the knee, and it's still very ischemic, no blood flow. That's the best we can do right now because I have a son that needs me as a single mom. But they've talked about osseointegration or higher level amputation. And then I also have the condition in my right leg, and surgery hasn't even started on that leg, and it's slated for the same fate. So our timelines are different, but I want you to know that you're not alone in that fear. And I also want you to know that when you can get to the place of acceptance, the thing where you can just go, no matter how much I worry and lose sleep and isolate and self-medicate and scream into pillows and kick and scream, none of it will do anything to change the outcome. And all it is doing is depriving me of these moments of joy and time with my loved ones and time with that foot that may not be here long. So it really, unfortunately, doesn't serve you at all. And so it almost becomes like part of, for me, I'm speaking for, comes part of my logical brain where I go, I feel it, I acknowledge it, it's real, it has a purpose, it's terrifying. Most people couldn't walk or wheel a day in our shoes, some of these conditions, some of these concerns. And people across many diagnoses and traumas in life have hardship that in the same way, it levels them, the tidal wave dumps them, they're swimming as hard as they can, but they don't know which way is up. And it comes in a ton of different flavors. Ours just happens to be ongoing medical conditions, chronic disease, and amputation. So there's a lot of people that struggle with this. And this grief cycle, when I learned about it, and Kelly will talk more about it, it really made sense to me because the feelings that you're feeling, like they go through bargaining, Kelly, a little bit of like disbelief, denial, bargaining, anger, fear, like there's that place. And hopefully you can relinquish some of that anxiety and get some assistance by way of adjuncts. So groups like this, supportive organizations like ours, and then a bunch of different coping mechanisms, counseling. I used journaling, meditation, mindfulness, yoga, gratitude journal, as simple as that is, just to keep in my front focus the positives in my life, because it's very overwhelming when you have that level of fear about something very reasonable to be fearful of, that wouldn't just take over everything. So you have to intentionally put energy into that which will bring you joy by focusing on it, is just what's helped me to stay out of the ward over at the local hospital, you know?
So powerful. There were two things that I call like life scriptures that I stood on that helped me in some of the darkest moments. And, you know, I wasn't just my divorce. I lost my dad. I lost my best friend to cancer. I mean, we all have these moments in our life. But the first one, a friend told me, and it was, be anxious for nothing, but in all things, in supplication, which is thanksgiving, just cast your cares. And it sounds easy to say, but when I found myself getting anxious, I would imagine myself just casting my cares, like throwing away the care, take the anxiety off of me and throw it away. And that just gave me peace. And the second one was, and I don't know what your faith is, but this is my life scripture: trust God and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will take care of you. He'll make your paths straight. And that just also gave me peace. I have to believe there's something bigger than me, because if I'm all there is, if my ability, my brain, my physical body is what I need to rely on, then that's a pretty sad life. So my faith grew tremendously, especially in this season, that there was something bigger than me that I could rely on. And I don't know about anyone else here, but I have seen some miracles in my life. that have come along that there was no explanation for. So that really helped me to build my faith. And I would just take quiet time. I call it soaking in heaven, because heaven is the highest thing that I could think of that would be good. And I will just go somewhere quiet, sit out in the lounge chair, on the couch, or in bed, and just imagine I'm in heaven and having conversations there where you get to ask questions, and you might be surprised at some of the answers that you get. And that's what gave me peace and took away a lot of anxiety and fear for me, to now being able to live a life where I can trust and live in forgiveness and more peace. Jill, did you want to add something? Oh, and you're muted.
Hold on. Okay,
There
there
you
we go. Dawn, just to talk a little bit. I have a condition. It's not exactly like Tina's, but it's the same. And I keep praying that the right leg just stays healthy and does what it's supposed to do. I've been to my vascular surgeon more than I need to, just to give myself this comfort in my mind, stating that I'm still good. Going on a trip in Florida, I was worried about getting on the airplane, and then he just looked at me and he said this. He goes, "Trust today, trust tomorrow." He said, "Your condition may be 5 or 10 years down the road before we need to do more surgery. It could be 6 months from now." He says, "You have to try to focus on you're good right now." Because I still get a little numb in my foot. There's a couple of areas that I know there's a small blockage. But that's just say prayers that in the morning, I say, "Okay, God, I'm used to my Gracie. She's good. Please just keep watching my right leg." And that's just a little bit of advice that maybe I can put towards you, but I completely understand, like Tina does, exactly what you're going through right now.
Dawn, another practical thing that I do is sometimes I will write a to-don't list, just like everyone has a to-do list. And the to-don't list is the things to stop doing that are not serving me. So when I catch myself doing things that are not serving me, what's on the to-don't list? Am I turning to alcohol? Let me put that on the to-don't list, because really that's not serving me. And sometimes before we can do something new, like an affirmation or breathing or meditation or yoga, we have to look at what are the things that we can stop that are maybe creating the fear. So can I stop myself in the thought when I start going down that road? Can I stop doing things that might be contributing to fear, and then eventually start something new, like listening to a TED Talk or going back and listening to these podcasts, or something that gives you life? So you get to set a boundary for what you allow in, and just be allowing in things that fuel you with encouraging things, not things that are pulling you down or getting you in fear. So for example, I don't watch horror movies. I don't even watch R-rated movies. There's just boundaries I have because I want to have peace and joy in my life. So I don't watch the news. If there's something that important, someone will tell me, but I'm not going to let the fear of news come into my life, throughout the day or at night or anytime. So those things help for me to stay in peace. And like I said, it's just too priceless to give that up. Wafa, did you want to add something?
Dawn, I just want to say also, I have a cleft foot that I don't have feeling in it at all. And it's very fused. And sometimes I walk with pain, and I go to the doctors for pain management. He said, "I cannot do anything anymore. It's you, and you need to come to me whenever you're ready. You want it to let it go." So I just fixed my mindset. The pain started slowly. I used like a numbing cream, whatever, just to help me keep on my daily things, and just avoid like things like a lot of people say do certain exercise. I avoid it because I don't want to hurt that foot. And I go push myself not to hurt it. So this way it would save me, hopefully, for a few more years to keep me going the way I am. And just as Kelly said, praying really does a lot to me. Like when I go to church and I pray, "God, just keep me going to stand up, help out my daughter, my kids, my grandkids." Like I'm watching him for 4 days, and I'm doing that for him. And I just keep stronger and stronger for it, So I know it's hard, but just things positive day by day.
I love that. Thank you. That's really valuable. Okay, well, the idea is not to stay in the grief. We don't want to get stuck there, and we definitely don't want to get stopped there. And you can feel when someone is stuck or stopped in grief because we are all energy. Everything is energy. And the very lowest form of energy, and this is actually measured. There's a book called Power versus Force by Dr. Hawkins, Richard Hawkins, and he measures victim as the lowest energy. It's actually equal to decaying. So it's like a decomposing body. That's how low victim level energy is. The highest level is that love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, just the highest vibration that you could have. That's where we would love to be. That's not realistic to be there all the time. But for example, when they measure the energy of a monk, that would be close to that highest enlightenment level of love. The tipping point that gets you from the lowest level of victim to the highest level of love is courage. It is the ability to, when you're knocked down, get back up again. And it might not happen in a moment. It might take a season. It might take a little while, but eventually being able to get back up again, whatever that looks like when you've been knocked down. The people who are the most resilient will thrive the best. And when people get stuck and stop there, they will stay in bitterness or anger. And it's just it's a dark, not a great place to be living your life, because there is so much promise on your life and there's still a great plan on your life. So staying in grief, I use the acronym GRIEF. The G is grim, right? It is grim to stay in grief. You just don't have any hope. The R is resentment. You walk around resenting everyone and everything, thinking everyone has it better than you. And that's also not a good heart place to be. The I is ill. You'll be ill, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, relationally. That illness spills over into every area if you're staying in grief. You can't disconnect any of it. The E is ego. That's when you're so self-centered, self-focused that you've made everything about you. And the F is those false things that you're believing that just are not the complete truth, that you're not shining light on. So that's when you're staying in grief. So for me, the opposite of grief is faith. So the F stands for forgiveness. And this might sound silly to you, or maybe not a place you're at yet, but it's forgiving yourself. And that's usually the hardest person to forgive, even if someone has done something to you, but just releasing yourself. Stop holding your own feet to the fire. Stop burning yourself, but get to a place where you can love yourself, accept yourself, and free yourself from whatever it is that you're holding yourself to that's keeping you back from being in freedom and living a life of health. The A is acceptance. And the people who can accept their situation the fastest tend to thrive the most versus the people who hang on to it and angst and stay in the suffering and want the attention. So the quicker that you can accept, this is my situation, you could move on in a healthy way so much faster. The I is the identity. And again, any of these topics we could spend hours on, but it's how you see yourself, how you relate. And you might see yourself different now than when you were before, but what is your authentic self? That's where you want to get to a place where you can have peace in who you are, in the flesh, in the spirit, relationally, in every way. And the T in faith is your talents. That means every single one of you has a good plan and a good purpose on your life. No matter how you look or how you show up in the world, you have a purpose, you have talents. Whether it's spending time with your grandchildren, getting on a plane and going to the beach and visiting, there's talents that you have in you that there's still a need for. And then the H is health. And that is really doing your part to be as healthy as possible. So what can you do to be the healthiest body, mind, and spirit? A good morning routine, getting movement in, contributing in some meaningful way. So that's the acronym that I use for faith: forgiveness, acceptance, identity, talents, and health. So again, I'll stop there. I know we're going a little bit long, Tina, and see if there's any questions or comments. Dawn.
All right. I know it's mean, but sometimes I'm like that. I'll look at someone else and be like, why does she have her legs and I don't? Is that ever gonna go away?
I believe that
that's really mean to me. I'm not that type of person. But like, I'm like, why do I do surgery go right and mine went wrong? You know what I mean? Like, does that ever go away? Because I feel mean when I think that.
I don't think it's mean at all. I don't think, I mean, it's an emotion that you feel. It is definitely not mean, and it is absolutely fair to feel that way. And I'll use my example of divorce. I didn't go out on Sundays for like 2 years, because why did she get to have a husband? Why did they get to have a happy marriage? You know, why am I the single person? I think any of us can do that with anything. And now when I see couples, I bless them, and you know, I hope their marriage lasts forever and they're happy. So you can get to that place. It just may take some time, but it's not mean. It's just real. It's true. It's honest. It's how you feel right now. But it may not be forever. It's just how you feel right now. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that feeling at all. So
when I was in that
feel it.
stage, Kelly, I also too felt like the why me stuff, right? Like wouldn't it be great when we're feeling great if we could have those negative thoughts, so we could just like, we've got our shield up, we've got our swords, and you're not coming for me today, Satan, right? It's just, but it doesn't, right? When you're low, when your energy dips, when you're underslept, when you're undernourished, when circumstances are hard and you're not equipped to handle it, is when it seems to come in. And that's why, like Kelly said, it's really easy to start to feel stuck in it, because just because your brain tells you something doesn't mean that it's true, but it feels so real. And so you feel sad, and you feel jealous, and you feel longing, and you feel disappointed, and you feel regret, and you feel all these things. But it's because you're allowing that lens that you're wearing to dominate the entire processes of your thoughts. And so I learned this thing way back called first and second pass theory. And it was like, okay, the first thing your brain tells you that doesn't feel good, for me right now, it's because no, the answer, Dawn, is the triggers that you're saying, they do never stop. But the way that you start to respond, not react, which is more of like when you have like a reflexive thing, that's more reaction. And when you respond, it's more of a pause for a second. Let me chew on that and like respond in a way that is in alignment with my core values and serves the situation positively, which takes a moment. But if you can, you know, so for me, it's women running with their strollers in the morning. It's like 7 a.m. I'm just getting my leg on. I've got my whole routine. I've got, you know, a lot of issues. And so I look outside and there's like moms in a jogging group, and it looks beautiful. And they're wearing, you know, the shoes that maybe I can't wear because of my prosthetic. And, you know, there's this moment, this quick now flash where I look and I just take a breath and I'm like, you know, that could have been me. That should have been me. That why can't I? All those thoughts. And now, because I've conditioned to be aware of that, I can stop it. But the first part of rewriting the internal narrative, which for me was pivotal in moving from absolute suffering, depression, don't want to get up out of bed, don't want to eat, don't have energy, pushing everyone away because I was there, was genuinely stopping the tracks that were playing in my head and writing it over. So then I started to go, okay, every time I recognize this thing I'm saying, I'm going to acknowledge it. I don't know what to say to it yet, but I'm just going to, let me see how much a day it happens. I'm going to be aware of it for one full day. And at the end of the day, I was like, no wonder I feel awful. No wonder I feel unmotivated and angry and bitter and jealous, because it is literally all that I'm doing in my head silently. If it was a megaphone, it would be very apparent to everybody else, but it takes you a second to slow down and intentionally listen to what you're saying to yourself, to recognize it. And that's probably what's happening, is those loops throughout the day that are keeping you in fight or flight and keeping you hypervigilant and making you tired, which is making you less able to defend yourself against those internal thoughts. So just start to try that tactic of being aware of it. And then the next phase for me was, I'm going to now say something different that's the actual truth when those things come up. So me with the moms out jogging with the stroller, that should have been me. That I wish that were me. Why did this have to happen to me? Just stop and go, well, this is my life. So what does it matter? What is that thought even leading me to? Only to feel bad about myself, to long for things that I'll never have, and to take me away of this moment where I'm playing on my porch with my beautiful son. So just none for me, thanks. Just acknowledge it. That doesn't serve me, none for me. So that's what I've used, is that first and second pass theory. That's just my 2 cents, Dawn. I hope it helps.
So yeah, I kind of do that. Like, I don't think I ever really went through depression yet. And I know that sounds crazy, but I've lost a husband at like 30 something years old. So, I mean, I've gone through the grieving there, but I don't, to be honest, like after the second day of having it taken off, I was just, how am I getting back home to the kids? How am I gonna get up and be able to live life again with the new situation? Like, I kind of didn't want it to put me, set me back, but I'm afraid that because I didn't experience that it's gonna come too, is another thing. Like, I go through some of the emotions, but like I said, it's not in that direct sequence. Like, some days I'll be fine, perfectly fine. Like, I talk to Jasmine all the time. I'll be great. How's your day? I'm having a great day. My focus is this. And then all of a sudden the next day I'll be like, again, why does that lady have her leg? But I think, like you said, it's more because something frustrating is happening at that moment, where yes, if I had a leg, I wouldn't be at that frustrating moment. And I think that's what you said. Like, I have to kind of be like you said, I've accepted it, but maybe not fully, where I'm at that point in life that I can just be like, oh, that's great to see her running, like you said, down the street with the baby carriage. Some days I have that, or some days I look at her and I'll say to myself, I really, like what my mom, she's very sitting down all the time now that she's retired and she's got bad legs. I'm like, you got to get up and go. Like, you got to move. Maybe if I did that, I'd be okay. Like, I still have those days, but I don't think I've ever really hit the depression stage yet. And I don't know if that's gonna come. Like, did anybody ever experience it? Like, later on they were gung-ho, and then all of a sudden, I'm afraid it's gonna come when I get my prosthetic and I'm at that stage and ready to get my leg, and then everything's gonna go backwards again, because that's what it already did. I was ready to get it, and boom, my leg was infected, and we had to start from the beginning, which I know does have its turning points where it can go back 12 steps after you just made it 3. I know that, and that's how life is, but I'm just afraid that I don't want to get in that depression. I went through it after my husband. My relationship with my oldest son went to crap because I wasn't a mother, because I didn't know how to handle that big life situation that happened and changed everything drastically like this. Like, I'm a go person. I have 3 kids. My youngest is 6. Like, I constantly have to go. Like, I get stuck in my mind when I stop. When I have this
Dawn,
time
I'm gonna interrupt you, because I'll tell you, you're thinking exactly the same as a lot of us. It sounds like your avoidance tactic is busyness, and that's common. I don't know if Kelly, I'll give you back the mic, but I think that avoidance by way of pace is, as you're concerned with, Dawn, a setup for having to face it at some point. And oftentimes when life forces you still, like if the other limb has to be taken, or if you get ill, that it seems to catch us then. Liz, you can probably relate, right? The hardest time probably was when you had your leg amputated, life slowed down, and everything that was behind you that you were chasing that wave of can come crashing in, right? Do you relate to that? Yeah, I think a lot of us can. So you're normal, Dawn. It's normal to oscillate between the phases. And I think that you dealing with your feelings a little bit more presently and not avoiding until the inevitable happens. Then, oh my gosh, the sky falls and now you're laying in bed having to really mourn and grieve and come to acceptance of all of the years that you have been busy. And that's very overwhelming. I know, Liz, you're nodding along because you did it. I did it too. And I don't wish it on anybody. And I think that's what Kelly's saying is sort of like the presentness and the mindfulness of the now and where you were needs to be sort of like resolved, excavate that kind of trauma by working through it, feeling it to heal it. And then you can start sort of emotionally with this cleaner slate as you move into what sounds like a newer wave of possible, interventions that are triggering. I think that's what it sounds like. But what do you think, Kelly?
Yeah, even if you listen to Dawn's language, she probably said 6 times, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. So she kept repeating that, and they're all about things in the future. And so maybe there's a way for you to rephrase that or not get so far ahead of yourself that you're not being in today with your 3 kids, just handling the joy of today and the trouble of today and not giving too much attention to the future, because you don't know what's going to happen. None of us do. We're going to believe for the most, the best and hope for it, but don't let it steal your joy today, what might happen in the future, because none of us know what tomorrow is going to bring. And I will be definitely adding all of you to my prayers because you have incredible strength. And to be a mom of 3, a single mom of 3, takes extraordinary superpowers. And so I'm definitely going to be keeping you in my prayers. I would say stay present, ask for help, take things off your plate that you can get help with. If your kids are 6, they can wash vegetables, they can wash it, clear the table, there's things they can do. So don't be afraid to include them to lift some of the burden off of you as well.
Thank you, Kelly. In the interest of time, I wanted to just kind of see if there was any other final statements, Kelly, with your presentation. I want to make sure that you get any final points out before we do our closing remarks, because I know the hour went so fast.
It did. I would just say, if anyone wants to email me, I will personally respond to any messages. Tina can give you my email, but it's Kelly with an I at kellycalabrese.com. And I do have a book that you're welcome to get a free copy of. It's an electronic copy. It's called Success Habits of Super Achievers. But basically, it's 80 stories of ordinary people just like us that something unreasonably difficult happened to them, and they chose to get back up again. They chose to be resilient and not just get back up, but they chose to do something with it that was really meaningful and made a difference. So I recommend you read 1 chapter a day, 1 story that will give you hope to get up and to enjoy another day.
Well, everybody, do me a favor. I want half hearts up so that my heart's going out to all of your hearts. Oh, that's what we do for Leslie in all of our meetings. Kelly, thank you for the incredible information. I always learn more and more and more anytime we talk, and on screen, off screen, quick phone calls. You're just the way you say things, the way you explain things, and just your background, what you've been through, who you connect people to and resources. You're so selfless. So thank you for being here. It really was an honor. And I hope that you guys learned some things from this. If you're interested in that raffle opportunity for the CBD salve, CBD gummies, all you have to do is put your information into the general inquiry form on the contact section of our website, leslegmorehart.com, and you could get selected to win those gummies. Liz got some last time, and then 2 other people that aren't on the call today. So in closing, guys, just if you don't already subscribe to our YouTube for Less Leg, More Heart, we have a lot of content that's going to be actually posted up soon of my life and some of the things, single mom and on one leg, and a lot of other things I have not had the time or energy to capture, but with the new team will be up. And so we're close to getting all the views that we need to help make this part of our funding opportunity for our mission for Less Leg. So the more likes, shares, and views are helpful to us. If you're in the Southern New Hampshire area, please come by June 5th to join us for the cornhole tournament. And there is an online assault bike raffle we're selling tickets for. You can find all that information at the events tab on our website. But there's a Facebook group, which is more of the call to action I wanted to tell you guys about. I put a Facebook group up specifically for this group, Heart to Heart, so that as we continue through the months, the speakers will be invited, and then all of the attendees you can be invited, you can come on and join on. And so if you have questions, speakers, if there's topics of things that you want to discuss, if there's someone you're related to in a meeting that you want to connect with, we're going to grow this family, and that will be a center place for that. So feel free. I'm going to drop I'm going to drop this link to the Facebook group right now, right in the chat for you. That way you can just click on it and join it before you leave today. Awesome. Well, the next meeting is Thursday, June 9th at 6 p.m. Same time, same link. Please share, spread the word, share the news. We have 2 more months lined up of incredible mind work focused presentations, referrals from Kelly herself, things to assist you in navigating the process of ups and downs and ebbs and flows and challenges with your psyche and your emotions and your nervous system and your breathing and all of these types of things that you don't even know maybe are making your day-to-day a little bit more challenging. So if you don't necessarily need it, if you don't think you need it, you're wrong, but still show up so that you can teach it to somebody else. Otherwise, I will see you guys all, I hope, next month. I'm so grateful you spent your evening with us. Kelly, again, thank you for being here. And from my heart to your heart, I hope that you guys have a beautiful rest of your day and week, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.
you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.